Hello, my name is Alex Isles and welcome to Arbea Roman Fort up here in South Shields in the northeast of England. And we've already had a look at the barrack block that the normal soldiers would have lived in. Then on top of that as well, we've looked at the Centurion's apartment. Now we're going to look at the house of the commanding officer. And this is when you really get a sense of the wealth and the power and the influence that these important characters would have had up here in the north of England on the frontier of the Roman Empire. Now, to start off with, when we're looking at the commanding officers, we have to understand their rank. In Roman society was roughly divided into different ranks. So you would have slaves, foreigners, free men, who would be like farmers or traders or people like that, citizens who actually had Roman citizens and were counted as Romans. Then you had equestrians, who were the knightly class, and these would be civil servants, governors, important parts of the running of the Roman Empire. Then you would have senators, who were regional governors and very important individuals, legion commanders, people like that. And then you had the emperor and the emperor's family. So the commanders of a unit of auxiliaries would be equestrians. These guys would send their sons or maybe professional military officers who would join the army, and then they would manage these units of soldiers. Many of them would do it for a couple of years, and maybe you'd do 2 or 3 years of service, then you'd move on to another unit, and eventually one of the highest things you could do would be to be a commander of auxiliary cavalry. That was considered one of the highest statuses for an equestrian, and you would hope to eventually, at the end of your service, manage to climb your family into the senatorial classes. And as you climbed into the senatorial classes, that would secure your family's position within the Roman Empire and give you a chance of becoming emperor or becoming one of the imperial family. So that was a very important thing. This right here is a reconstruction of the late Roman, so 4th century commanding officer's house. And the commanding officers' houses changed at various different periods, but this is an example of a 4th century one right up here in northern England. Now, due to when they reconstructed this fort, only half of the commanding officer's house is actually reconstructed. So over here you can see the layout of some of the ground, where there would have been a furnace which would have actually heated the underfloor heating inside the commanding officer's house. There was also a stables, and alongside that as well his winter dining room. So that would have been a warmer dining room, and we'll also see the summer dining room as we go through the building as well. So just when you're understanding this, when we're going through here, if you start thinking, oh, that's not very large or something like that, it's because you're only seeing half of this. And he's also got a location for his horses, he's got a mini bathhouse, he's got a furnace, he's got a winter dining room. It's a very, very elegant building. But as you entered here, there would be a water feature right here at the front, and then alongside that as well, these buildings have been interpreted as storerooms. So right here you can see a storeroom that would have contained maybe food and other luxury goods for the commander, as well as possibly animals as well. And then you can also see what they've called the porter's lodge, which may have been a slave or a citizen's house who worked closely with the commander and organized his household. Then coming into the main area here, we can see that this has been done out in a beautiful style, and there is a central garden area which would have actually mimicked a Roman villa across in Italy or in the Mediterranean. These would have been painted with beautiful frescoes, and where you can see the wall on the other side, that would have been much like this with the arches, so you could see into the other side, and there would be a walled covered walkway around here as well. This later on also inspired monasteries, and so there'll be a similarity between both the commanding officers' houses, the villas, and later on monasteries in other periods. But you can see this walkway which would have taken you around to the other part where we'd have the winter dining room, the stables, and the bathhouse. So again, we're looking at a very, very high status building. As we come inside here, we've got some wonderful reconstructed rooms. This room here is the commanding officer's office. So inside here, he's got these, what we today would call wardrobes, and inside there, he would have all the documents that he needed. So there would be documents of the number of men in the unit, there would be letters sent to him by regional governors or officials. In the late Roman period, the Dux Britannicum, the commander of all of the northern units, who was based in York, would have been sending out letters to his commanders on the frontier and communicating with them. So these would have contained correspondence, they would have contained letters, they would have contained his own personal management of the fort here, and all of the different things that he would need to be aware of to actually maintain the fort well. They put some wonderful depictions on here as well, with pictures of what they believe the commanding officer could have looked like, as well as sort of ancestral spirits and deities around him, and a depiction of possibly his wife and the commanding officer himself on the walls. So when a soldier was misbehaving, or maybe a local official wanted to contact the commanding officer, they would have to come inside this building, they would have to have a meeting with him, and it was probably conducted in this room here. And this would have been one of the most important rooms in the Roman fort, because it had been a highly political location where decisions that would have affected the frontier would have been conducted in this room, and the soldiers would have been deployed, sent out on patrols or on actual military duty because of orders that the commander would have set inside here. As we go into the next reconstructed room, we are now in a living room. So you can see here there is a sofa. It looks more like a bed today, or maybe a futon, but that there is a sofa where the commanding officer and his guests, maybe after he's conducted work in his office, would then be able to come inside here, lay down, have food and drink, and relax inside here. There may have been another one of these on the other side of the room, and there's a small portable fireplace as well, which allows, or a brazier, as you can also call it, which would have kept the room warm and made the place quite pleasant. Even though all the walls here are painted, these would have become quite sooty, and the light from outside, well, the Roman glass had a bluish tint to it, so it would have been quite a cool, pale light which would have come in, and so the warmth from the brazier would have added an extra bit of light and colour to the room, but also made it quite a warm place as well, with people inside here eating and drinking, and a very social space for the commander and his close personal friends or visitors. As we come inside here to the bedroom, you can see another element of Roman life. This is a beautifully decorated room with blues and greens, and this would have been a place for a visitor to come inside and stay while they were visiting the commanding officer. So you can see that it's got the bed there, a chair, which would have been very, very comfortable for them to sit on, and alongside that as well, we've also got a cot for a newborn. So it's set out again as if it was maybe for the commanding officer's wife or a female member of his family, possibly his elder daughter, who's maybe wanting space within the commanding officer's house. But it's set out so it's quite a comfortable location for the commanding officer's family right up here in northern Britain. So right inside here we have the commanding officer's room, and this is again another very opulent room. It would have been kept warm as well in the same way as the other room, with a brazier inside here, and that would have provided a lot of heat for this high-roofed particular house. There is also a possibility as well that these didn't have as high roofs, and it was actually a two-storey building, and therefore there would be rooms above here, which again shows the wealth and the opulence, because the soldiers in the barracks, they've only got 2 rooms between 8 men, whereas the commanding officer is living in a multi-storey building with lots of different rooms where he can have guests, extra space for his family, and alongside that as well offices and things like that, so he can conduct his business within the Roman fort. Again, it's done out in the very, very opulent style. The walls are painted, and we've got the commanding officer's bed in the centre here, which he would have shared with his wife. There's a possibility as well, they've got an interpretation of little cots there, so they could have newborn children in the room, and then an altar there where he would have worshipped the gods he was particularly close to. So you have the state gods, people like gods like Jupiter, gods like Mars, and then you would have the more personal gods. So possibly in the late Roman period, he might be worshipping Mithras, who was a very popular soldier's god, or in the late Roman period as well, we know the unit stationed here was a unit of Iraqi Marines. So it might have been that he would have brought a god over from the Middle East that he particularly venerated, and he would have worshipped them here at the shrine. Obviously, as they become Christian, rooms inside the commanding officer's house would be converted into a chapel, and that would be a location where he could pray and worship to God, the Father, and Jesus on this site as well. So that would have been an important part of the Roman way of life. And coming out of these rooms, we'll go down here. And we come back in to what is the summer dining room. Now the summer dining room right here is a beautiful example of what Roman living was like. So in the summer, when temperatures are nice and warm, you would have all of your guests and you would lie down on these cushions. Food would be brought out onto tables, which would be in the middle, and the commanding officer would hold his feasts inside here and his communal dining. So when you've got your communal dining, this is an incredibly important part of the importance of a commanding officer. You're supposed to hold feasts with maybe for other commanding officers from within the region. So these commanding officers would be visiting you and you'd put on these feasts. So there would be a very social space. But on top of this as well, you not only got these feasts on, but you'd have larger family meals. Let's say, for instance, your extended family visits you, or you're hosting another important official, maybe like the Dux Britannicum, this really important military official, or alongside that as well, maybe a civilian merchant or other people like that, who you're trying to exchange favors with. So this is another social space here where the grand eating that the Romans would have done would have occurred. So you have all of your foods laid out in the center, and they would have gone and been able to eat throughout the whole evening with slaves around the room refilling plates, bringing new dishes in and maintaining the braziers and the heat in the room so it would be a comfortable and a nice place to be. So this is the summer dining room. Obviously the winter dining room was slightly smaller, it was heated, and it was basically so that during the winter period you wouldn't have the uncomfortableness of the cold around you. But in the summer, this light and airy room with the large windows which provides all the light would have been perfect for for early evening dining or for evening dining, and it would have kept the room nice and cool during a warmer summer nights. As we come out here again, we would have been entering out in this direction, but obviously this part of the fort hasn't been reconstructed. But through these doors, there would be a storage yard and further living areas. So you can really get a sense that this was a really large-scale fort up here, large-scale commanding officer's house within the fort in northern Britain. So you can just see over there the reconstructed area stops and the excavated area is then shown. But again, just to reiterate, he had his own bathhouse, a winter dining room, additional living space, and possibly even a second story, which would have had additional rooms within it. So you're looking at a very sizable building. So when you compare it to the soldiers who are just living in a room with 8 soldiers in there, the centurion who's got an apartment to himself and lives very well and has his own toilet or possibly even his own bathhouse in certain forts on Hadrian's Wall. And then here, where the commanding officer has his own garden and water feature in the center of his house. He's got multiple rooms for different family members and guests, and space for slaves and servants, and 2 different dining rooms. You can see the social and structural difference in the Roman army from the soldier who's being paid 200 to 300 denarii a year, to the centurion who's on about 12,000, to the commanding officer who may be earning between 200 and 300,000 denarii a year. So this is an incredible show of wealth and power up here in northern Britain. So I really hope you've enjoyed the episode today, being able to learn something about the Roman fort here, the different ranks and structures, and about the wealth and power of what was able to be done here in Roman Britain. As always, if you've enjoyed the video, I'd ask you to subscribe if you already haven't, share the video with your friends, and if you want to be involved in making or suggesting more content in the future, please support me on my Patreon, because that's the best way to help and influence on the content I produce for this channel. Alongside that, I hope you're safe and well, and then you'll join me for another video in the near future.